Here's the thing. Once you go through it, we actually allow the vendors to start to choose who they want to sell to. So if you find you've got an old home which is no use to investors anymore, as the property we sort of use an example of yours, you can tick, I don't want to sell this to investors because it doesn't work for them. If you're a developer and you want to get your valuations up and you want to sell to only first home buyers and owner occupiers, we can organise that so that the investors don't see it. If you've got a NRAS property or a rental guarantee property, then we can just allow that to be only sold to investors. And that'll be holiday rentals as well. So if you've got a holiday rental, you can just choose to sell it only to investors. Okay? And then the other thing which we have in there is you get to set the price. By setting the price at $500,000, most developers don't want to see any negotiation. However, we've got a tick box option. If you tick the box, if you want to negotiate and look at offers, you can put in there a figure which is, say, $470,000 as your minimal viewable offer. Which means, if I'm selling my property here and Martin comes along and says, well, I'm going to put in an offer. If he puts in $450,000, then it will say to him, I'm sorry, you haven't reached the minimal viewable offer, increase your offer or find another property basically. So we're starting to go into the negotiation. If he then if he puts in $490, it'll be submitted to the vendor. If he gets here and he puts in $470, then what happens is online negotiation where the vendor can start negotiating down. He might put in $470, the vendor puts in $490. They agree on $480. Whoever's agreed, then what it does is it triggers the deposit. Because in order to start bidding, what you've got to do is put your credit card in, same as what you do with a hotel. If you go and say, I'm staying in a hotel, they take basically an imprint or an upfront authorisation of $1,000. We do the same here. We take an authorisation. The credit card is not transacted until these parties agree on the price. Negotiation and the sale price, and also the commission goes to the buyer, it goes to the seller, and it goes to the buyer's lawyer, and it goes to the seller's lawyer. It's forming part of the contract. Because as we said before, the buyer wants to get the incentive we've offered him. So he actually wants to make sure we're getting paid. Any agent can come in here and guarantee the payment. Okay, I'm just going to run through quickly how people can sell their property. And you can see there we've got all the normal type of stuff here, bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens. You can see here where you can tick the boxes which I just mentioned, the sale price. You can put in the currently rented. You've got the will you accept offers. You can put in the minimal acceptable offer, all that sort of thing. You've also got NRAS or rental guarantees, property location, all that. Expenses, you can put in your land rates, water rates. Also your first point of contact. If mum and dad are selling their home, they may want mum to take the first calls, they may want dad. They can also put an agent in there if the agent's there. And if that goes down, we've got the agents, real estate agent. They can put them in. They become the first point of contact so that every other agent, every other buyer contacts them first. But they have to do conjunctions. Part of our terms and conditions are that any agent can get paid on this, and I'll show you that as we go along, because we fully disclose. Features, tick box option. You can go through and tick any box here and do it. And if you haven't got features which we've got, you just put them in and we put them in. And once we start seeing them a lot, we'll add them in permanently. You can also do the images, browse and drop. You've got the tutorials up here where you can see them. It's just looking at your images on your computer, drag them and drop them. Reports, same thing. Here you can organise a valuation up front so you know what your home's for sale, what it's worth. If you're a mum and dad, you don't know what it is. Similarly, you can organise pest and building inspection, pool inspection and all that. Why people don't organise that up front is beyond me. Why go to the trouble of advertising your home, selling your home, putting it up in place, and then the buyer has to go to the bank, gets his finance, and the first thing they say is, well, we need a pest and building inspection report. So the pest inspection report shows you've got termites. What's happened to your sale? Gone, disappeared. Why not get it done up front so that if you've got termites, you can get them fixed. Once they're fixed, they don't come up on the next report. Get things like that fixed out of the way. So we're trying to say to people, get your valuation so you know what your property's worth. That way agents also don't get into trouble for the current legislation in New South Wales and Victoria where they're either overquoting or underquoting the price. It's not you telling them, it's a valuer. They're relying on it. So we have that situation. Proof of ownership. Mums and dads have to prove they've owned the property. Otherwise we'd have somebody selling their next door neighbour's property because we're online, which we don't want. So they have to prove that they've got land rates, water rates, plus their driver's licence so we can match them. Developers don't have to do that, but they can also put in area reports. They can put in their brochures, their valuations, their floor plans. All of these different things can be placed in. We can pick a lawyer, 3 options. We've got the lawyer which we recommend, which is currently on the system, which we've got a nationwide one, very large. Second one, you can have a registered lawyer in your area, or third, you can invite your own lawyer, but they've got to become a member, which may take time. Okay? But you pick your lawyer so that he gets notified through the system. All done. Buyers get the same process. They get to pick their lawyers on the other side. We don't have the same one do twice. Now, next one's fees and incentive, which is what everybody wants to know. Here what happens is the minimum commission and advertising we will accept is 1.5% commission and 0.5% advertising. Nothing is paid up front. This is only payable on settlement. And what people should be saying to agents, by the way, is if they come in and say the price on $1 million, my suggestion is to people, they say, oh, look, get me $1 million, I'll give you a high commission. I'll give you, say, 3%. If you get below between $1 million and $950, I'm only going to give you 2%. Get below $950, I'm only going to give you 1%. That's what people should be doing with agents, because if they've promised you the price and they don't perform, if they're still getting the 3% on a million, 3% is $30,000. If you drop it down to $900,000, you've dropped $100,000. Are you happy as the vendor? No. The agents only dropped $3,000. They're getting $27,000. Do you think they really care? No. So we'll be promoting that sort of situation. Whereas we're not setting the price. We don't tell you, you work it out what your property's worth, you work out what you accept, we don't influence you one way or the other, and you agree to pay us our commission set on. The way it's ranked for owner-occupiers and first home buyers basically is based on this figure here, which is the amount going to the buyer. In this case it's $3,700. However, if you want to increase your ranking, because at the moment you're 112 in this area out of 112, if you want to increase them up, you increase your commission. Right, and you increase your advertising up, because here the agents also get part of the advertising fee, okay? And so does the buyer. And you'll see here now that the incentive's gone up to $9,400, which has increased their rankings just a little bit there, because we're dealing in an area with developers. And if you list a property, you can list it on here, no upfront charges, no ongoing charges, just pay on settlement. Now, because you didn't get to the top of the list, you can go add incentives, right? Now at this stage, the agents don't get any. The Revaluate doesn't get any of this money. This is money which goes directly to the buyer. They get 100% of the fees, which is where we're getting it from the developers at the moment. They can come in and put a Harvey Norman voucher in. So if you just go all the way up, then what's happened is they increase the ranking, you're now 4th. So we come to the top of the list. Because currently on realestate.com, to get to the top of the list, you simply have to pay realestate.com a lot of money. They then put you to the top of the list. And then next week you'll have to pay more money to stay at the front, and next more money. Right? Whereas we say that money goes directly to the buyer. We don't get 1 cent of it. You'll see the figure, $9,400, $10,000 there, $10,000, we don't get any. That's the agreement we made with the banks and the mortgage insurers to make sure we're looking after the buyer. And they're probably going to take that money to lower their LVRs and pay their mortgage insurance. Tell you now. Okay? But they worked out very quickly it was better off going back to the buyer to help their position than it going to the property marketers, the big real estate firms, and also the property marketing people, who they want to put out of business. The mortgage insurers and the banks want to put property marketers out of business. Tell you now. Then what happens is summary. Once you've filled it out as the seller, this goes to you to tell you in an email form saying this is what you're going to be paying on settlement. It also goes to your lawyer telling them this is what's got to be paid on settlement. And then the moment it's transacted, the deposit's paid, that letter goes out again and says this is part of the contract. The buyer is now buying it based on this.